Welcome back to Aliyah and Chill. I'm your host, and today we're exploring the wonderfully absurd world of making Aliyah as a convert to Judaism. Fair warning, this episode contains themes of bureaucratic identity crises, excessive documentation, and the phrase, "Are you really Jewish?" asked in 17 different ways. So there I was, a proud convert to Judaism, ready to make Aliyah and finally live in my chosen homeland. I'd spent 2 years studying, converting, learning Hebrew, and immersing myself in Jewish culture. I knew more about kashrut than my Jewish friends, could daven better than half my synagogue, and had strong opinions about both Israeli politics and the proper way to make challah. Surely, I thought, Israel would welcome me with open arms. After all, I'd literally chosen to be Jewish. That's got to count for something, right? Oh, sweet summer child that I was. The first hurdle? Proving my conversion was legitimate. Apparently, the fact that I'd stood before a Beit Din, immersed in a mikvah, and committed my life to Judaism wasn't quite enough. I needed paperwork. Mountains of paperwork. Documents that proved I was sincere, documents that proved my rabbi was qualified, and documents proving that my conversion wasn't just an elaborate scheme to get Israeli citizenship? Because clearly, spending 2 years learning Talmud is the most efficient way to get a passport. The requirements read like a Kafka novel. Provide an affidavit from a recognized rabbi confirming your conversion, your active participation in a Jewish community for at least 1 year, and proof that you weren't just doing this to get really good hummus. But here's where it gets beautifully absurd. The Israeli government has to evaluate whether your conversion was sincere. How does one prove sincerity in their relationship with God through bureaucratic forms? Do they want a selfie from my mikvah? A notarized statement that I genuinely enjoyed learning about the 39 categories of work prohibited on Shabbat? I submitted a 47-page conversion portfolio that included my conversion certificate, with apostille naturally, letters from 3 different rabbis, proof of synagogue membership, photos of me at Jewish events, my Hebrew school graduation certificate, and, I kid you not, a detailed essay explaining why I want to be Jewish. It was like applying to college, but for my soul. The movement hierarchy adds another layer of comedy. Orthodox conversions are the gold standard, accepted everywhere, universally recognized, the Jewish equivalent of a Harvard degree. Conservative conversions are like a really good state school, respected but with some asterisks. And Reform conversions? Well, they're accepted for Aliyah, but come with the disclaimer, valid for immigration purposes only, not accepted for marriage, burial, or convincing your future Israeli mother-in-law. So you can immigrate to Israel as a Reform convert, live there, work there, pay taxes there, and serve in the army. But if you want to get married? Sorry, we're going to need to see your Orthodox credentials. The interview process was particularly special. Picture this, sitting across from a Ministry of Interior official who's trying to determine if your love of Judaism is genuine or if you're just really committed to this whole chosen people thing for the healthcare benefits. So, the interviewer asked, why did you convert to Judaism? I launched into my heartfelt explanation about finding spiritual meaning, connecting with Jewish values, and feeling called to this ancient tradition. And it has nothing to do with wanting Israeli citizenship. Well, that's a nice bonus, but... Aha! So you admit it was partially motivated by immigration? No, I meant... It says here you attended synagogue regularly for 2 years. How do we know you weren't just pretending to be interested? How do you prove you weren't pretending to find spiritual meaning? Should I have live-streamed my Torah study sessions? Kept a diary of every time I felt moved during Shabbat services? The cultural challenges were equally entertaining. Here I was, a convert who'd studied Jewish law intensively, arriving in Israel only to discover that half the secular Israelis I met knew less Hebrew blessings than I did. "Wait," said my new Israeli neighbor. "You actually know the blessing for seeing a rainbow?" I just say, "Cool, a rainbow," and move on. I found myself in the bizarre position of explaining Jewish customs to born Jews while simultaneously having my Jewish credentials questioned by bureaucrats. It's like being the only person at a party who actually read the book that everyone's supposed to discuss. The documentation trail was endless. They wanted proof that I'd been an active member of a Jewish community for at least a year. What constitutes active? I submitted attendance records from Torah study, photos from synagogue events, letters from congregation members, my volunteer schedule for the Oneg committee, a detailed log of every kiddush I'd attended. I was basically creating a Jewish participation trophy case. But here's my favorite part. After all this documentation proving I was a sincere convert, the Israeli government approved my Aliyah, and I became an Israeli citizen. Success! I was finally living in the Jewish homeland as a proud Jewish immigrant. Then I tried to get married. "Oh," said the rabbinate clerk, looking at my file. "You're a Reform convert? That's problematic. Have you considered converting again? Properly this time?" So there I was, Jewish enough to immigrate, not Jewish enough to marry, but definitely Jewish enough to pay Israeli taxes and receive strongly worded opinions about my life choices from every person I met. The ultimate irony? I now spend my time helping other converts navigate the Aliyah process, sharing war stories about documentation, and explaining why your Hebrew school teacher's letter of recommendation probably won't be enough. "But I literally chose to be Jewish," they say. "I know," I reply. "That's what makes it so complicated." That's all for today's episode of Aliyah and Chill. Remember, if you chose to become Jewish, you clearly have excellent judgment and strong commitment to complicated decisions. Perfect qualifications for Israeli bureaucracy. And hey, if navigating Aliyah as a convert sounds more complex than your original conversion process, maybe it's time to call Easy Aliyah's VIP concierge service. We specialize in proving to Israel that you're exactly as Jewish as you say you are. Until next time, keep your conversion certificates handy, and remember, you may have chosen to be Jewish, but Israel gets to choose whether you're Jewish enough.